Why do ministers often neglect rest?
The demands of ministry never stop. So how can I?
What are the consequences of burning the candle at both ends and ignoring rest?
In this episode of the Winning in Ministry podcast, we take a look at the ancient concept of rest. It has been there since the very beginning of time. If you want to be your best, you have to learn to rest. God modeled rest at creation. Jesus took time to rest. How about you? Are you taking time to rest? Stick around and you might just learn an often overlooked tool for winning in ministry.
You're listening to the Winning in Ministry podcast, where members of the Edify Leaders Ministry coaching team share insights and inspiration they have gained as they seek to strengthen ministers for exponential impact in life and ministry. And now, here are your hosts, Ray Sanders and Tom Mathew.
Welcome to this edition of the Winning in Ministry podcast. I'm your host, Ray Sanders, and I'm joined in studio by none other than Tom Mathew.
Well, Ray, it's so good to be here again and talking through really an important topic. We're talking about something that ministers, pastors struggle to prioritize, and that is R-E-S-T. All right? Not R-E-S-P-E-C-T, but R-E-S-T.
Maybe that too.
Yeah. We're calling this episode Rest to Be Your Best because that's the truth. Without rest, you can't function at your full potential. To help us dive into this conversation, we've invited two longtime ministry leaders who know and understand this topic very well. We've got with us today Pastors Frie and Wendell Lang.
Welcome, guys. It's always good to have you guys with us. We draw from your experience. Just give folks a really quick summary of what you do and what you're about.
Well, I am been in ministry now 54 years, and it has been a joy. It's something I've loved. I'm so thankful I've had the opportunity to pastor 7 churches in those 54 years. The last church I pastored was for 20 years, First Baptist Jinx, and recently retired, and now investing my time with Edify Leaders to come alongside pastors that are struggling and that just need somebody to hold the rope for and be there for and encourage and pray for. And it has been some of the most rewarding time of my life.
Great.
Well, like Rick, I've pastored for many years. I've pastored for 43 years. I've done denominational work. Currently, I'm working with a group that helps perpetuate the gospel through funding, through loans, wills and estates, like a foundation. And then I am thrilled to be a part of Edify Leaders to come alongside those who, Ray, as we have said, are really on the front lines of ministry.
Yeah, we're glad you guys are along for the journey for sure. Here's one thing that today's topic is all about. We live in a busy world. I don't know about you guys, but it just seems like it's busy, 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 busy. Ballet, baseball, Bible school. I mean, what in the world? We live in a busy, busy world, and we just overprogram. We've got it all figured out. You know, we used to have calendars, then we had daytimers. Now we carry around phones that remind us of when we're supposed to go outside and get a suntan. I mean, it's just crazy. As the old song says, there never seems to be enough time to do the things we want to do once we find them. Let's face it, leaders are busy people. Leaders are busy people. And ministers, though, they have plenty of time on their hands, right, guys? They got plenty of time. They're just taking it all in. It's easy street for ministers. Hey, we know that's not true. Being in ministry is 24/7, 365. It's a call to duty that never ends. You can never put your rifle down. It's exhausting. And who has time for rest, right? There's guys and ladies listening. They're going, hey, I don't have time for that. I don't have time for rest. Nobody has time for rest, right? Well, not very many, apparently. The truth is we have to rest to be our best, and rest is a big deal. It's been there since the creation. We know that Jesus did it. We have to rest. That's what this show's all about.
But let me ask you this, though. Rest is the best.
Mm-hmm.
God modeled it from the beginning.
Yep.
Jesus showed us what that looks like. But I'm curious to hear from you guys. Why do many in ministry wear busyness like a badge? Right? Why do they do that? I mean, you think about it, right? We're talking specifically about pastors and ministers, but even if you go up to like a 6-year-old and say, "Hey, how's it going?" They're like, "I'm just busy," and you're like, everyone is busy, and there's this sense in culture and society that if I don't say that I'm busy, then I look like I'm just a loser. I'm not doing anything. So it's this badge of honor that's there, and especially when it comes to pastors and ministers, why do you feel like they want to wear that as a badge of honor?
Tom,
Good.
I think it's just a matter of pride. I think that we look at that somehow we've connoted busyness with godliness
Mm,
and or Christ likeness, and it's just simply not the truth. And I need to tell all three of you, I, I have had some concern about this topic, knowing that we were going to talk about it today, and I've come to some resolution about it. Uh, First of all, I think rest has both a theological component and a practical component. The theological component, we're all familiar with the principle of the Sabbath rest. The practical component is why I was feeling a little squeamish about talking about this, because I do not do rest the way someone else might do it.
Hmm.
So I think there's a key to understanding that we're all kind of made differently, and that we can have our Sabbath rest in different ways. And then, Rick, I'm going to give one example, and then I'll hand it off. We've all been told all of our lives that the way to spend time with God is in the morning. And going back to the navigators, and we were taught that you spend those best hours in the morning. There was a guy, Rick, that I know had influence on a lot of people in our age, named Ron Dunn.
Mhm.
And Ron Dunn said, "I'm not a morning time. I spend my time with the Lord at night." And that gave me some freedom in this area of a Sabbath rest, because unlike some, I have not been the best of taking blocks of time and doing my Sabbath rest. So this is full disclosure here. I tend to do my Sabbath rest the way we make disciples, as we go. And it just works better for my makeup, for my psyche, to have portions of a day rather than to give an entire day. Ray, I'm not sure if we want to counsel people to do it, but I do think that working within our spiritual gifts, working within our temperament, working within who we are, the key is to take a Sabbath rest. And we all know we don't worship on the Sabbath. We probably don't. We worship on the Lord's Day. We might not take even every Saturday. So for me, taking time to refresh, to rest is the key. How we do it might really vary to some degree.
Wendell, I think you're right, because I have found for my personal time of rest, of that solitude, certainly with the Lord. Um, a lot of times it is of the morning. Sometimes it's of the morning, but it's also later on in the day. Sometimes it's later in the day. Sometimes it's later in the evening. I think the main thing is that there is a consistency that we are doing it. And I think we all are made differently. I'm more of a morning person. I wake up early. Diane used to kid me and said I would wake up of a morning singing "The Hills Are Alive." I bounce out of bed with a big smile and ready to go. And so I found that for me, morning and during the day, nighttime, I was kind of crashing. I was ready to go to bed. Um, but I think this rest is, I think one of the reasons why. Uh, taking it a step further is if there is a fear of taking time, not just alone with the Lord, but I'm talking about just getting away and relaxing and breathing, and doing something totally different. Um, is there's a fear is that if somebody sees me, because the church can put added pressure, that we feel like, again, it's back to this performance. I've got to perform. I've got to be there. I can't miss this. I can't take off. Um, and part of my problem that I ran into in my life was, again, when you got a church and you're trying to see the church grow and get healthy, is that you also begin to take away from, you don't feel like you deserve it. Um, and so I think that's one of the challenges, is that because we are on call 24/7. There's really never a day that you're not if you're pastoring and shepherding. I don't care what size church it is, and the bigger the church is, the more those demands are. So I think there's a fear. I think there's a sense of uh, what if somebody sees me not in the office, or what if I'm not there, or whatever. And so we find ourselves pushing away from doing what we need to do to take care of ourselves.
Let me just say this. There's certainly freedom. There's freedom. I mean, it's even referred to as the law of the Sabbath. I was reading in Mark, even today in chapter 3, I think it's Mark chapter 3, the Lord talking about that the Sabbath was given for us. Sometimes we think it's for the Lord. The Lord gave us the Sabbath. It's for us. It's to make us healthier and better. So I do think there's freedom in possibly how it's utilized. But here's the thing I'll say. We need to plan it. It needs to be intentional.
Mhm.
It can't be accidental.
Mhm.
I'm starting to feel tired, so I'm going to take a Sabbath. No, how about we rest, and even when we don't think we need it, and we go ahead and take our time. It's amazing what happens. You have to rest to be your best. You have to be still to be filled. And if you're just taking little water shots along the way to the marathon, I know pastors, I know ministers, they're workaholics. And if they don't plan it, they don't get intentional about it, they'll never do it. And I think the Lord said that we work 6 and we take the 7th, or however you want to look at it, or we take 1, however you want to, first of the week, however you want to organize it. But the bottom line was there was a rhythm and there was a plan. And it's kind of like they say, you hear the old thing about Easter. It's Friday, but I know Sunday's coming. Well, you know what? I can get through a week if I know I've got a day of rest coming.
Mhm.
But the tendency is just to man up, to saddle up, to sit tall in the saddle, to pull myself up from the bootstraps. And I know there's freedom and there's flexibility, but I'm going to tell you, we don't need them. We can come up with all kinds of excuses. It'll be there, minister. It'll be there, pastor. Well, I know I need to rest, but I know I need to take a Sabbath, but. Well, what happens is a season becomes a lifestyle.
Mhm.
And when a season becomes a lifestyle, you look back and you're cross-eyed, bloodshot-eyed, you're worn out, you've got hairdo like I do, you don't have any hair. Your wife and your kids are like, all dad ever does is go to the church, or all dad ever does is ministry. He never has time for a ball game or anything else. He doesn't have any time to rest, and he's frazzled and worn out. And so there's a real, real, real danger about not taking a Sabbath. And so I don't excuse it. There's no excuse for it. We have to plan for it. We can't enable. If you're out there and you know of a pastor friend, or you're a wife, we don't enable. This is a commandment from the Lord. It's not a suggestion. The Sabbath is a commandment. We need to plan it. We need to stick to it. It's not accidental. It's intentional. So why do you guys think that it's one of the most broken commandments that's out there? I don't want to be legalistic, but why do we give ourselves the excuses of, oh, well, I'll be okay? Why is that?
Ray, you make a good point on the Sabbath rest as far as planning it. I'm going to go back to the Greek philosopher who said, "Know thyself." And if you know your temperament and you know your propensity, then you can plan accordingly.
Yeah.
Might vary, as I said, but we got to know who we are, and I think you all have made a very good point that rest is not going to be serendipitous or spontaneous in an ongoing basis. It might not look the same, but you got to make sure that you keep this commandment.
Let me give you a good example. I think where I'm at with you on that, Wendell. This was something in our house. I'm very high strung, driven type A. I don't hardly sit down for anything. If I could eat and walk around, if I didn't have to stop to go to the restroom, I would just wear a diaper all the time. I mean, that's how I am, that high strung. And so my wife and I made the decision that, you know what, we're going to take a Sabbath. And so we decided we was going to be Saturday morning. Okay. We decided Wendell, to your point, did we take all day? We took Saturday morning. So it's Saturday morning. I get up. I remember the day this happened. I walked into the living room. It's about 10 o'clock. I walk up to the back of the couch. My wife's reading a book, has a blanket on. She's all nestled in. I said, "What are you doing?" And she slowly, you know what happened? She slowly looked up at me and says, "It's Saturday morning. I'm taking a Sabbath. I'm just chilling." I said, "Oh, okay. Well, it's 10 o'clock. You want to go do something?" and, and she said, "Sanders, not for another 2 hours." I said, "Well, I thought we might go for a ride, take the top down on the car. It's a nice fall day. We could go drive around." She says, "I'm taking a Sabbath." "You take a Sabbath? How do you want to take a Sabbath?" And the deal is, here's the other thing. Now, you guys are going to think I'm crazy, but I think one of you mentioned it. If you're so cerebral, you're always in your head. And the line of work that I'm in, I'm always working with clients. I'm always strategizing. I'm always thinking. Sometimes I just don't want to think anymore.
Mhm.
And that's kind of what the Sabbath is. It's disconnecting from the routine, right? That's what you're saying, Wendell. That's what you're saying, Rick. It's breaking away from the routine. And so for me, sometimes a Sabbath means mowing my yard, breaking a sweat, building a fence, doing something strenuous physically. Well, people say, "Well, that's not resting." Oh, but it is resting for me. And that's what you're saying, Wendell. I don't think we have to be legalistic and say we're going to every pastor, every minister needs to buy a hammock and you have to lay in the hammock for 12 hours straight. And after you've done that, the buzzer will go off and you can get up. You're done resting. Oh my word. I would be hanging from the hammock. I would be going crazy. What do you think, Rick? Throw
Oh,
me a
I agree. I think I know for me, like I said, it was maybe doing something in my in the barn doing woodwork. Maybe it was something entirely different. Uh, you're, I think as a pastor, you feel like you always have to be on. There's never a time that you're not, and I think when you can change that and do something different that does relax you. I remember uh, I had a church member in a church actually let me learn how to fly, and it became one of the most relaxing times of my life because I would go out and get in the plane, and he had one. He let me fly it, and I put gas in it, and that was some of the most relaxing time of my life, and I felt refreshed. So not everybody's going to have that, but I think you've got to find something that you can do where you can relax, disconnect from what you normally have to do day in and day out. And I think when you do that, you're going to be healthier for it. And be honest with you, your ministry is going to be healthier for it.
No, 100%. I think it's one of the things is I think rest is viewed in the wrong light. It's viewed as
Mhm.
weakness.
Mm.
It's viewed as,
Yes.
you know, it's seen negatively. Whereas, again, if God valued it so much to create a law, the law of the Sabbath, then we have to really see it for what it is. It's worship to Him, right? He's saying, this is something I need you to do to refresh your soul. The things that you guys have been talking about have stated that. Hey, mowing the lawn, doing the different things, whatever refreshes your soul, that's what the rest is all about. Because at the end of the day, our soul, that the health of our soul determines everything else.
Mhm.
And so let's keep going in the same vein that we're already in right now, but get a little bit more practical, some practical rhythms, you can say. But what would it look like to incorporate rest in your life, let's say on a weekly basis, monthly basis, and annual basis, because that looks differently. And I want to kind of tie it in because I wrote that down as well. It takes intentionality. So you're not going to stumble onto rest, but you've really got to set it out, whether it's, at the start of the year, here's what it kind of looks like. And yes, you have an open hand, but at least you've got a plan weekly, monthly, annually. What are some handles we can give people as to what they can do to incorporate rest into their life?
Tom, I'm going to keep going back to the foundation of knowing ourselves and knowing what drains us and knowing what feeds us.
Mm-hmm.
And that's different. There's a gentleman that all three of you know. I was on the phone with him this morning, and he's one of my really better friends, and we are as different as night and day. Being around people is a drain to him. Being around people is a fuel to me. So once we know thyself, then I think we're able to plan these respites, pardon the pun, respites. And then I think, Tom, I really love this idea of weekly, monthly, annually. And a part of this, Rick, could be like when you talked about getting away by yourself. It could even be in planning. It could certainly be in fasting. It could be a part of the spiritual disciplines. So we know ourselves, we feed ourselves, and then I think we do this in a regular basis that we're keeping rested.
Yeah, I think that, be honest with you, I think you hit it right on, because I agree so much in that every one of us are different. Or make, as Ray, you talked about, I mean, you are hyper, you're on the move, you're never still. And so I'm like Wendell. I'm very relational. So I get my fill by being around people. And I love that. And so I think you have to, again, you got to learn yourself, as Wendell said. Um, I think once you do, then you can know what fills that cup up, what fills you up, what you need during the week. Do I need to take a time to just get away and do this? Do I need to mow the yard? What do I need to do just to break the cycle of what I typically do? And I think you got to plan that. I agree. I think one of the key things is when you get into the monthly and you get into the yearly thing. One of the things that I know I tried to do was at least 2 to 3 times a year. I would try to plan so that I got away. Fortunately, I had church members that had places that they would let me go to, whether it was on the lake or it was a cabin somewhere. And I was able to get away and just be by myself and just with the Lord. One, to just be still and listen. And what I began to discover was that God really was not going to disclose himself any further to me until I was willing to take the time to be still and rest. Okay. Um, and sometimes it was a walk. I mean, it was walking through the woods. Sometimes, yeah, I would go deer hunting and sitting up in that deer stand all by myself on a cold day. Me and the Lord had some long talks, just waiting on a big old buck to walk by. And sometimes those bucks never walk by, and or you miss. So, I think again, it's figuring out who you are, what brings that sense of solitude and rest to you, that you can truly listen to the Lord. And the more that you do it, the more I think you begin to discover, man, God begins to speak clearly to me. I can hear him better when I do this. So it makes you want to do it even more. So you got to put it into practice. You got to just do it. And once you do it, you find out the rewards of it, and you find out what it meant to your life and what it meant to your ministry.
Let me play into Wendell's perspective just a minute. I just gave a presentation with one of my corporate clients last week, and I challenged him with the concept of micro breaks. Micro breaks. Think of it as a micro Sabbath, if you will. And I broke it down to daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, and annually. What does a micro break look like on a daily basis? It basically means you've been in your office, you've been doing something, you've been traveling, you've been on the road, whatever it is. You take 5 to 10 minutes, you get out into the sunshine, you walk around, you get up on your feet, You take daily. Sometimes you just need to take a little micro break. Some people, if you get outside, some would call it green therapy, if you will. Weekly. What does it look like on a weekly basis? Well, I think on a weekly basis, that means taking some time off from what you normally do. Take some time off away from your routine. And then I certainly think it probably means limiting your phone in this day and age, trying to break away um, from the phone. Monthly, sometimes, when's the last time, when we ask our ministers, pastors, our clients, when's the last time you went on a date with your wife?
Mhm.
I have people that say we went last year
Mhm.
or we went on
Mhm.
our anniversary. I think it's a low bar to say one idea on a micro break, in context, we're talking about micro breaks based on context. A micro break monthly might be, I'm going to for sure commit to a date night with my spouse. And then quarterly, I think it's big to hit the highway, get away, a day trip. I don't even care if it's from one town to the next. Just hit the highway, feel the wind in your face. Um, some type of day. I mean, it can be a day trip. It doesn't have to be overnight. Just break the routine. Break the routine. Don't be so legalistic. And then I do feel like, and this isn't always easy, do something annually. And I love the fact, Rick, that you had men and women in your church who gave you the opportunity to go experience their lake house. We need more laymen like that. It's not
Mhm.
like, what's it cost for a pastor with 3 kids to go on vacation for a week? Are you kidding me? How are they going to do that? Well, we probably ought to give them a raise, number one. But second of all, maybe we bless them with a trip.
Mhm.
Maybe we make sure that our pastor is going to take a trip annually. So these are just some practical ways to bring this into that rhythm that we're talking about. One of the lines we hear often is, if the enemy can't make us bad, he'll make us busy. How does rest help us stay on the right track? How does rest fit into the rhythm? How do we keep from being bad boys, guys?
Well, one thing that I think is important to realize is that when you take that time to rest, um, spending time with Jesus, getting alone, what I find is then I become less distracted. I get very distracted, and I think a lot of guys do. Is you get so busy, you're having to perform, you're having to do all the time, you're having to be on all the time, and to be honest with you, those things can distract you. They keep you from hearing and listening, and I think being sensitive, because you get so busy. You get so busy at performing, and that's where I think the candle begins to burn in the middle. And I think that once you really learn to take that time to rest, to spend time with the Lord, uh, for me at least it was, then I became less distracted. Uh, and I think that that's where the enemy gets in. If he can keep me distracted, and he can keep me not focusing on my relationship with God, my relationship as a husband, my relationship with my family, and certainly my relationship even with my church, but keeping it in a right balance, then I'm going to fail. And I think that's one of the great tactics of Satan.
Mhm.
Good.
I think the Old Testament gives us a beautiful picture of what happened when the children of Israel were given a command to not plant crops once every 7 years, to rest the land. So the Bible says, they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their
And
strength.
strength. Yep.
And so that's what the Sabbath rest does. It allows us to renew our strength so we can mount up with wings as eagles, run and not be weary, walk and not faint. So it's I'm not the first one to say it, but as ministers, we have a weight problem. WAIT. We live in this instant society. We want everything now. And then we think somehow it depends on us to get it done. And I think waiting on the Lord, getting this Sabbath rest, as Rick has said, restoring our soul, actually makes us more productive.
Mm. That's really good. And it kind of leads to what I was kind of thinking about next. And it's this: for you guys as ministers, how have you seen that busyness impact your leadership, preaching, and vision? And on the other side, how have you seen rest impact your leadership, preaching, and vision? So, in other words, having experienced both of these, how do you see that kind of making its way into the things that you do, and kind of contrast the two and speak on that, please?
Well, I think for me, when I allowed myself to become so busy and so preoccupied with doing uh, the busy stuff, I remember hearing guys say one time, the government builds the roads and Baptist wears them out going to meetings. We're constantly on the move, constantly on the go. I think you get the product of what you can do rather than what God can do through
Mm,
you. Uh, I think it was good a while ago. I think Wendell said you begin to echo what others are saying or what others are doing, and so you find yourself. I think you look for the next book, you look for the next this or that that you can read, and hopefully you can gain something out of that that you can share with your church. And so you find yourself um, again back to this deal of performing, and it's not coming sitting at the feet of Jesus and him filling us with his truth. See, I'm one of these guys that I have a saying. I believe that anytime God gives you a spiritual truth, it is to come into your life. It gets unloaded on your spiritual unloading dock. It is simulated in your life, and then it picks up speed and it passes through you on its way to somebody else. But the key is that's the truth that God's given you. And when you're just repeating what somebody else is saying or doing, because you're so busy, you don't take the time to truly get a message from God.
mm,
Then what happens is you begin to echo. You're just repeating what other people have said, and you don't really get the message. So for me, when I got so busy, yeah, that's what you turn to. You go back and preach a sermon you've already taught maybe
mhm.
3 or 4 years ago, because they're certainly not going to remember it.
Yeah.
They don't remember what you preached last Sunday. Um, what when you find yourself taking the rest. Um, I was reading the other day. There's a passage that's over. It's in Psalms, and it's talking about Nathaniel, and I want to read this real quick because it says, "How do you know me?" And Jesus answered him, "Before Philip called you, when you were under the fig tree." And he says this, "I saw you." What I realize is that when I can be still, the world may not know what I'm doing, but God sees you
Yeah.
guys. God
Yeah.
knows you. God knows your makeup. God knows your frame. God knows everything about you. And don't lose sight of that. And when you're spending time and resting, you begin to realize, wow, God knows me. I don't have to be what everybody wants me to be. I don't have to perform. I
Mm.
just need to be who God created me to be and called me to be. God knows you. God saw you. And I think when I'm resting, when I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing and what I know to do, but again, sometimes don't do it. We all struggle with that. It's when you begin to realize, hey, God sees you, God knows you, and God's with you, and He's not going to abandon you or forsake
Rick, when you were saying that, here's what I thought of. Rest helps you not lose that prophetic voice that you
you.
have.
Yeah,
Right? You're
absolutely.
able to hear from God and speak what he has, instead of you're so busy, you're just trying to pick up whatever you can and just deliver it to the people. You're able to get that manna, whatever he has, that food, whatever he's given you, you have that prophetic voice because you're able to stay connected with him, and rest allows for that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Wendell, what are
Rick,
your thoughts? Mhm.
earlier uh, that the Sabbath rest is a command, and we would do well to be reminded that God always reserves something for himself. There was the tree in the garden. There was the year for the land that I mentioned. There is the first fruits. God always demands something for himself. When we feel we are compelled to do so much that we can't give God the Sabbath rest, is really nothing more than a prideful thing to say it's dependent and contingent upon me,
Mm.
rather than they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength.
Mhm.
You guys are nailing it. This is a great discussion. We have time for one more question here. And I want each of you to think about this. I'm going to give you a couple, and then I'd like for each of you to share at least one. You know, folks are listening. They're thinking, okay, I give. My arms behind my back. You've twisted it. I'm going to have to do something. It's turning into a lifestyle. I've been in a season, and I'm now in my third year, and we haven't had a vacation. I'm going to have to do something. I want us to think about one small step. What's one small step a tired minister can take and utilize this week that they can begin practicing to implement rest in a meaningful way? And I'm going to give you two, and then I want you guys to share. We've used this phrase a lot on this program today, and it's be still. I think another word for that is basically meditate. And for me, that is one of the most challenging things. I do, in fact, have a weight problem. It's a double entendre for me. It goes both ways. It's WAIT and it's WEIGHT. I have a weight problem. But being still is not something that comes natural for me. But I was challenged in this. And someone said, not only be still, but don't think about anything. And I said, what in the world? Okay, it's one thing to be still, but to not think about anything? How do you do that? And so this is what was recommended. Find you a place. I have a chair that I particularly like. Sit down, be still, breathe deep. I know it sounds like I'm some kind of a hippie or some kind of other thing, but breathe deep. It's amazing how much we don't breathe deep. Find a music track that you like that's instrumental. I have my favorite. You can find your favorite. And here's the kicker. I put on an eye mask. I know you guys are going to think I'm a girly man, but if you find me sitting in my chair and I have an eye mask, but try it. I was speaking at a Fellowship of Christian Athletes conference not too long ago, and I challenged the audience for us to be still for 60 seconds. For 60 seconds. It was amazing how quiet the auditorium was. Start off with 60 seconds of silence with something soothing, with your eyes covered with a great eye mask. I get a good one. What is the net effect? That's a little micro break. I've now moved it up to about 4 or 5 minutes. Sometimes I even hit 8 minutes, guys. That's crazy. You guys are going, man, I'd be asleep. Okay, fine. Maybe you needed a nap. So that's one practical idea. The other one is get some sleep. Get some sleep. That's something you can do. Get some sleep. And it's not easy. Sometimes we wake up in the middle of the night. Sometimes it's we cut corners. We don't get practical sleep. I wear an Oura ring. In the last week, I've had my scores have been terrible. And I'm like, something's not right. I'm going to figure this out. And I figured out I wasn't practicing what I preach. I wasn't practicing my sleep routine. I wasn't living it out. And so here are some practical steps. This is something that everybody can do, practical steps. If you want to sleep better, find some form of white noise. You can find a white noise maker on your phone. You can find a noise machine on Amazon. And I know what a lot of you country boys do from Oklahoma. You flip on that box fan, baby. That's what you're doing. That's your white noise, but some type of white noise. Then set a routine. Find about a 30-minute to an hour time period when you go to bed. For me, I'm starting to show my age here, but if I can get to bed between 9:30 and 10:30, it's amazing what happens. But then when you go to bed, go to bed. And what I mean by that is no flat screens. No flat screens. Your phone, your laptop, your iPad, nothing. That blue light that's emitted from that screen is keeping you up. It's like daylight to your brain. And the other thing that I do, I'm not big on melatonin or anything like that, but take a magnesium. Take a magnesium at night, and they tell us most of us don't get enough of it, but don't just take magnesium. Take magnesium glycinate, GLYCINATE. Magnesium, a little bit more magnesium helps relax your muscles and helps you go to sleep. And by all means, no caffeine. I mean, I'm learning now after 2 o'clock, if I'm having a Mountain Dew or a cup of coffee or some iced tea or a Diet Coke or something, man, it affects my little routine that I want to put in place. And then keep the temperature lower. keep the temperature lower in your room. Now, some of you are thinking, well, I can't afford that. Well, figure out a way to make it cooler. And this last tip might just help you do that. And don't throw the tomatoes at me. Go do the research. This is the one that every guy out there is thinking, I might just have to do that. And that is sleep nude when possible. and let me put it this way, sleep as nude as possible. And I know what some of you are probably thinking, if I do that, I'm going to get a whole lot less sleep. And your wife's like, that ain't happening. But those are practical. I'm getting real. Hey, we're trying to talk about winning in ministry, and we got to get real. And that is a real tip. Go research it. It's a real thing. Okay, I've teed it up, and we'll close out the show here pretty quick. But what are the tips? The guy that's tired, the gal that's tired, they're worn out. What's a practical tip that they can have this week?
Go ahead, Wendell. I don't know if I can follow that one yet. I wanted to see what you were going to say, brother.
Well, they did hit some high points and at least one low point, but you really unearthed some revelations to me.
Yeah.
I don't have a lot to add to that except to say you did a great job in giving some practical examples. I would just add to that walking.
Yeah.
Walking can be a respite for us. And then I would second what you said about music, hearing something, and that helps the meditative process. And then, Rick, we're both still in the pulpit quite a bit, maybe not preparing as much as we did at one time. But by the way, Rick, it's okay to repeat a sermon as long as you reheat the sermon.
Amen. There you go.
Where's the hanky? Where's the hanky at? I got to get that.
You can repeat if you reheat. Oh,
reheat. I like that one, Wendell.
Well, what I'm trying to do in the whole meditative process is just many of these things you said, to breathe in and just try to divorce my mind from all these spinning thoughts that are going. But these are real helpful things.
And I agree. For me, I think the walking has been one of the big things. I would put my earbuds in and listen to gospel music or something that would calm me, and I would go walking. That has always been something that relaxes me. And again, I think it goes back to, as Wendell said, discover what it is that just causes you to relax. And again, I think for everybody it's different. I think Ray, what you talked about, I think those are great things. But I think everybody's got to figure out for themselves. You don't have to be what Wendell is or what I am or what you guys are, but understand who you are. Again, God knows you, God sees you. And if you'll ask him, Lord, what do I need to do to truly rest in you and just be able to just kind of calm my spirit down, help me to think, kind of calm down a little bit. God will show you. He loves you and cares more about you than anybody. And so I think if we'll ask him, God will show it to us, and then we just got to be obedient to do it.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the key things.
No, I love it. And I would just add one more thing to walking is a change of scenery, right? So if you can change the scenery, get out of the office, get away from people a little bit, go by the lake, go by the park, kind of change that up. A change in scenery just brings a freshness, and you kind of get out of that routine that you're in. So all of that kind of helps. But this has been great. Thank you guys so much for the insights, the practical tips, and really hitting on what we all need to be better at, and that's rest, right? Busyness doesn't make us our best. Rest makes us our best. Well, as we bring the plane in for landing, we are so thankful to be able to have this podcast. Winning in Ministry is brought to you by Edify Leaders, and Edify Leaders provides donor-funded coaching to pastors and ministry leaders and is devoted to encouraging them to reach their full potential in life and ministry. So you can learn more about the work of Edify Leaders or be a part of the movement by heading over to edifyleaders.org. So until next time, keep winning in ministry.
You've been listening to the Winning in Ministry podcast, made possible by Edify Leaders. Edify Leaders strengthens ministers for exponential impact. When ministers stay strong, ministries don't just survive, they thrive. Learn more about Edify Leaders at edifyleaders.org. Catch all of the Winning in Ministry podcast episodes on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcast. Subscribe today and share with your friends.